What's up everybody? Infamous back here with you again, and beautiful fall day and beautiful opportunity to talk about some Foxbody values. You can see behind me here I've got the 1993 Project Blank car and also the 1988 little coupe that could. Both projects that I've recently completed, both projects that are already sold and just waiting for customer pickup. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk about Foxbody prices and the current values of these cars here in 2020. Both these cars behind me are very similar in terms of looks. We're talking about coupes, we're talking about black, we're talking about gray interiors, but we're talking about something in terms of price that is completely different. You can't even compare these cars when it comes to pricing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. So I'm not going to get into 93 Cobras, Salines, Dutch cars, anything that's specialty or anything like that. We're just going to talk about overall general Mustangs and, most importantly for today, notchback value. So some of you guys are probably wondering, why are these things so expensive now? You know, I could buy a Mustang for like $3,000 before. And well, there's a number of reasons for that. Now, both these cars again are very similar. The 88, has like 80K original miles on it, black on gray interior, no rust, horrible paint job, some modifications, so on and so forth, as you've seen in the little coupe that could demodification videos. But over here, you have a 75K mile original Foxbody that has original paint. All the VIN stickers are there. It came to me as a roller with no motor and transmission, but that original paint, the originality of this car, there's been, no questionable modifications, questionable body work that was done that you need to worry about. So values can differ drastically. All right, so this brings me on to modifications. So behind me, you can see the engine bay of the 1993 Project Blank car, which everything under here is representing the original look and feel of a 1993 notchback Mustang. So behind me now is the 1988 Coupe's engine bay that looks quite a bit different than that of the 93. The engine looks very similar because I went with the same paint colors and paint theme. However, you got your caster camber plates, you got a cold air intake, the battery is relocated to the trunk, you have a wire tuck, and you have a shaved engine bay. So even though that things look tidier underneath the hood of this 88, it's not the original engine bay, and the car doesn't have the originality that the 93 has. So modifications at the end of the day, because the 88 coupe is actually modified, right? Might not have a lot of engine mods, used to, before I took the built motor out. But you got suspension, you got the nice wheels and tires on it, the Recaro seats are sitting in it, you have full exhaust, cold air kit, short shifter, gears, all of those nice little mods. But why isn't that car worth more money? Well, there's a lot more of these cars that are out there that have similar modifications. And at the end of the day, you don't always know who did the modifications. And especially when you have these big built motors, or that people don't have documentation for who's done the work, so on and so forth, that price tag of, I have $10,000, $20,000 in parts, doesn't mean that it's worth that to the next guy, or that the next guy would build it that same exact way. So when you're comparing the 88 to 93, there's the factor of the actual year itself, where you might have argued in the past that, well, hey, all 87s and 93s look the same. Well, there are slight differences, and at the end of the day, a 93 is going to be more desirable simply because it was the last year that Fox bodies were produced. So, they might have hyper eutectic pistons in them. There could be some other things that maybe that you would argue, but the reality is that some people like certain years and they like those amenities. Everything that happened generally around 90 in terms of upgrades. The airbag steering wheel, you got black interiors, you got your speedos that went up to 140 miles an hour. Those are just some of the little things that make the cars a little bit more desirable at the end of the day. So there's a little bit of compare and contrast between the 88 little coupe that could versus the 93 Project Blank car. So in terms of value, well, that 93, I'm not going to tell you exactly how much I sold it for, but I can tell you that that is a $20,000 to $25,000 car in terms of value. And if you have one that's as clean and as tidy as that one, you'll have no problem selling it for that amount. The 88 little coupe that could, this is somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000, depending on how you want to look at it. You know, I did keep the Recaros, but you can see this car is worth half the amount of money that this one is. Why are Fox bodies so expensive in 2020? Well, the first reason is simple. Business 101, supply and demand. And that supply and demand is actually kind of done at 180. When Fox bodies came out, coupes or notchbacks were the least produced out of all Fox bodies that were sold. And it was said to be that they were the least desirable. So fast forward now to 2020, they're probably the most desirable. Everybody wants a notchback, which is the body style that there was the least amount of numbers made. So supply and demand here plays a very interesting factor when you're talking about, you know, a 30-year-old car that, you know, who knows what's happened in 30 years. So finding history, documentation, and having assurance that your car hasn't been wrecked, it hasn't been repainted, God knows what could be hiding underneath a paint job that was done, or if you don't have the VIN numbers to validate the body panels. So the paint job alone, in terms of value, to me is a $10,000 price tag. Because if you want, say, this 88 coupe to look as good and as clean and tidy as this 93 all original, you're going to be into 10 grand. $1,000 for quarter windows. You're pulling all the trim. You know, you are potentially, if you're doing that color change, you want quality materials that the paint is going to last for 30 years. You don't want a paint job that looks good for, you know, 3 years and the clear starts yellowing or starts sinking, or, you know, they didn't take the time and the labor to block sand properly and get your panels straight the way that they would look like from factory. So you have your supply and demand, and then you have things like originality that play a significant factor in terms of looking into your Fox body values. So we've spoken about the business 101 aspect of supply and demand, which kind of goes for, you know, any car at the end of the day. Now, there's another factor that's happened that, you know, Fox bodies have kind of been in the spotlight for the past little while. You know, you have people like Dennis Collins that has recently sold off a bunch of Fox bodies at Barrett-Jackson that, you know, everyone is like, oh my God, these cars are selling for a ridiculous amount of money. And then you have people like Ken Block, who's now got his Fox body that he's turning into a very exciting project. So if you guys haven't been following Ken Block, you need to make sure that you follow that build along. And interestingly enough, he chose a convertible. So the funny thing about convertibles is that there's an abundance of them out there that are super clean in the market. And some of the reasons for that is the fact that, well, convertibles aren't necessarily known to be race cars. They've probably been garage kept, and in some cases probably purchased by potential individuals or maybe going through a midlife crisis. And, you know, they weren't that younger age, so that they were generally more well kept. Not everybody would drive a convertible in the winter, so they were probably stored and just overall maintained extremely well. So sometimes you can find a really clean convertible that, you know, if you wanted to cut the roof off of a coupe and weld it back on, hey, that could be an option, right? So Fox bodies, in no doubt, have been in the spotlight. You know, you're watching Street Outlaws, and, you know, almost every series has at least a Fox body, if not multiple, that are racing on there. You know, they're still an extremely desirable and attractive car to build in terms of cost effectiveness and looks. And now we got the publicity and compound on the supply and demand. And now the last thing is overall knowledge. People are becoming more and more educated about Fox bodies these days. You know, there's resources like this video that I'm creating. There's tons of other people that are making videos out there with their opinions. If you just want to Google and find out what you should be looking for, not necessarily for a Fox body, but for any old classic car, people are educated. You know, they know to look for VIN stickers. They know how to look to see, you know, if a car's been painted. We have Carfax that's telling us history, and, you know, lots of service intervals and histories and registrations of vehicles now. So the information's at our fingertips. And with that, we can be more selective in terms of what we're looking for. We need to be aware that there's high visibility on these cars. You know, there's more international buying options now. These cars are getting shipped overseas left, right, and center. I can tell you this 93 is actually ending up going to the Middle East, which I just came back from. So that whole localization aspect of Fox bodies is gone now. People from around the world have seen them, they like them, they want to buy them, and that's great. You know, worldwide recognition of the Fox bodies, but at the same time, it gives a more competitive market for us over here that are potentially looking for clean Foxes. So there you have it, guys. Infamous's personal opinion in terms of the value of Fox bodies here in 2020. So that wraps up this segment, guys. I hope that you've enjoyed listening to my personal opinions on Fox body values here in 2020. I'm excited to hear what your feedback is and what your thoughts and opinions look like for these cars. And till next time.